Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. As we enter the last days of the USAF regime within the SNP, we have to ask who is likely to replace him. Who are the runners and riders? Some are very obvious, some less so. But it is increasingly clear that his time is up, that he has nowhere to go, and that his race is run. But, and it's a big but, it's how soon will it be? How long can he now last? He's got a vote today that he is very likely to lose. This is over the juryless trials in the new Scotland Justice Act. And there are many within his own party who don't like it. Now, whether they'll vote against him or not is a different matter. But apparently there's quite a few that are willing to abstain rather than vote against the party, as well as some who are likely to vote against. And so really, Humza Yousaf's future is actually in the hands, I think, predominantly of the Labour Party. Will they vote for or against this bill? It's an unusual situation where you're going to get the opposition voting with the governing party, while the biggest opposition is within the governing party. It can't be good, but it must spell his doom. If we had a proper opposition, it would. Let's take a look to see who's likely to follow Humza. Here goes. So who will replace Humza Yousaf as the SNP plots to get rid of their hapless leader? We'll take a look at the contenders. Now, we all know straight away who the top of that list will be, but there are a couple of others that may be of interest, should, of course, Kate Forbes either not want the job or not be selected. And there's a possibility of that as well. She does seem the most likely contender, viewed by many in the party as possibly the only contender, it must be said. But the First Minister is facing pressure from within his own party, with the Nats expected to suffer losses at this year's general election. Possibly a lot of losses. Possibly an absolute wipeout. Certainly Glasgow looks like it may be completely Labour, not a single Nat to be seen. That'd be a shame, wouldn't it? Humza Yousaf has perhaps exceeded expectations by clinging on to the leadership of the SNP for over a year. Many, including myself, did not think that would happen. The First Minister has faced a miserable 12 months in the top job as he struggles to deal with both the fallout from the Nicola Sturgeon era and his own limitations as a politician. Well, of course, Nicola Sturgeon's fallout problem is still going. And on a tangent, I don't know if anyone's watched the Amazon Prime series, Fallout. Do watch it if you're up for that kind of thing. It's very good. It's a post-apocalyptic wasteland, basically, with people wandering around, and it's a very unpleasant place to live. And I was watching it and joked to my wife, good Lord, it's just like Dundee. But that, of course, is very upsetting to the people of Dundee. I have a very good friend who comes from Dundee, and she will understand perfectly well. Anyway, reports on Sunday suggested senior nationalists were already plotting to ditch Mr Yousaf as leader. Oh, well, we've covered this before. It's not just this whispering campaign now. It's open rebellion. In some quarters, it's quite clear that that's what's wanted and needed. They want a succession plan in place, as polls suggests the SNP is suffering damaging losses at the general election. They want basically to know who's coming next. They want the general election to occur on that whatever Thursday it is. They wake up on the Friday morning. They expect Humza to go, and they have someone else ready to step in immediately. That's the plan. Polling suggests that the Nat leader is unpopular with the public. Say it ain't so. While his devotion, see the little Freudian slip there, his devotion to the Bute House Agreement and the Scottish Greens is under the spotlight, with Green members set to vote on the possibility of ending it. And indeed, quite a few SNP members want to vote to end it as well. But who will be the most likely to take over if Mr Yousaf is given the boot? Well, there we go. Number one choice, dear wee sweet Kate. She is not without her flaws, but she is at least sane. The first name that will spring to many minds is the former Finance Secretary, Kate Forbes, MSP. Defeated by Yousaf in last year's bruising leadership contest, a move to the backbenches has failed to take her away from the spotlight. Indeed, and she still pushes for leadership. I think she's still got ambitions. The fact that she won 48% of the vote after Ash Regan was eliminated has made life difficult for Mr Yousaf, who was able to call on party establishment. And of course he was able to call on that because the party establishment was still there and not in prison. That's not likely to be the case going forward. Everything that's happened in the last year has driven the establishment with a view that they perhaps shouldn't have picked Humza Yousaf. So, he is not likely to be there. He's not likely to be saved. And it looks like Kate is almost certainly a shoo-in. Seen to represent seen to represent the right of the SNP. Get that? Words are hard, aren't they? Mr. Forbes. I mean, come on. I know they have problems telling the difference, but hey-oh. Miss Forbes, 34. Social views could be proving a sticking point among SNP supporters. Yes, what with her being, Christian and having sort of formulaic Christian intolerant views. And I don't mean that as a downput. I mean, she's a wee free, isn't she? So she does have very strict outlook on life. Maybe not as tolerant as perhaps she could be. On the other hand, she does seem to have a sense of decency and honesty to a point. Careful, don't want to accuse her of being honest, but she does have this. But not obnoxiously so, and certainly her views aren't as rigid as Humza Yousaf's. It must be said, a man who keeps running away from difficult votes because he can't vote against the party, whereas he doesn't agree with what the party stand for. Remember the GRR bill where he ran to the hills and hid. Anyway, she has a reputation as a safe pair of hands, and her time in finance brief was praised. She seemed to be manoeuvring herself for a second tilt at the top job. Miss Forbes swears support for Mr Yousaf through gritted teeth and fingers crossed, I suspect. But it seems she has unfinished business when it comes to leading her party. And then there's Beryl, good old Beryl. Not a chance of leading the party, not yet. Stuck down in Westminster. He's the Westminster leader, and we've covered previously, the end of last week, we covered how it was likely, or perhaps desirable, that he stands in the Westminster election this time, 24, the general. Should he win, he stays there for 2 years until 2026. Then he resigns, comes up to Holyrood, stands in Holyrood for 2026 to get shooed in. He will be made, obviously, if he remains at Westminster and he wins his seat at Westminster, he'll remain as the leader at Westminster. But he'll also then be the deputy leader of the SNP. And then, should he get to become an MSP in 2026, he'll become the deputy First Minister, assuming that Kate wins that. Not likely, but that's the plan. They have to build plans. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, I suppose. But Beryl, part of the dream team? Meh. Not really. Anyway, the SNP's Westminster leader has already showed his ruthless side in getting rid of Ian Blackford, for which we must commend him, it must be said. That's in a coup back in late 2022. And Stephen Flynn's ambition could stretch all the way to the SNP leadership himself. Unlike Yousaf, the 35-year-old is unencumbered by the drudgery of Holyrood and has made waves at Westminster on such issues as Gaza. Oh God, doesn't he keep going on about Gaza all the time? But then I suppose he's got very little else. He's clearly ambitious and he's willing to take action to get rid of someone in his way. Fine. Mary McCallan. Well, let's face it, a no-hoper. Not educated enough, not experienced enough. Only risen to the top because of who she seems to be very, very friendly with. Keeps being given more and more briefs. Isn't any good at any of them, but keeps getting more power. Is allegedly holding the Messiah inside her, the Blessed One, he who is yet to come. Not seen as reliable, not seen as functional, I think. So that's my view. She's seen as a rising star of the nationalist movement. Mary McCallan, 31, would represent the same wing of the party as Yousaf, so therefore, straight away, a loser. As net zero minister, which she cannot do because net zero is impossible, she was forced into a humiliating U-turn again when the SNP ditched their climate pledges. But she's popular within certain sections of the party. Yes, we know which sections are very popular, especially with Humza Yousaf. But she's it's only been an MSP for 3 years, and she was previously a SPAD to Nicola Sturgeon. So, not experienced, not knowledgeable, bit wishy-washy. Oh, look, who's up next? Neil Gray. Not a chance. Yesterday's man already. Massively over-promoted. Never had a complex brief. Gets thrown in from a paper exercise brief at Energy straight into the largest department where he is, like everyone else who deals with health in the SNB, failing. Massively failing. Hasn't got a clue. Can't answer the questions. Really hasn't got a grip, has he? But it says here, another close ally of Humza Yousaf, Gray was handed the health brief after Michael Matheson quit in disgrace earlier this year. Previously an MP, he left Westminster for Holyrood in 2021 because he's going to go all the way to Holyrood so he can become the First Minister and rule Scotland with an iron fist. What a load of rubbish. He's a fanny. And then there's Jenny Gilruth, and I do not need to say anything else, do I? A woman so out of touch, she's numb and comatose. Zero ability, zero charm, always weird looking, always takes the wrong decision. Failing in education, failing in transport. Shades of corruption with regards to changing train stations so it wouldn't annoy her neighbours. You know, not good, not reliable, and certainly not functional as an MSP. She's a former teacher, wasn't a very good one, and is famously married to former Scottish Labour leader Kezia Dugdale. She was criticised for her, so it makes you wonder, what the real views in that house are, isn't it? And again, if you have her as leader and then she's so closely aligned with Labour, you can wonder which way Labour will vote on things. Yeah. Anyway, she was criticised for her handling on the ScotRail contract I just mentioned. Blah 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 blah. Yousaf has already proven incompetence is no barrier to promotion, and so therefore she's likely to do well if being incompetent is required for the job. Well done to her for staying so long. I'll come up. What I found particularly funny was there was a survey a few months ago that showed that Alex Salmond had better odds in becoming the next SNP leader than did Stephen Flynn. And you got to think, that's very weird considering Alex Salmond isn't even in the SNP anymore. That proves how unpopular Stephen Flynn is within the SNP, and yet he still harbours delusions of adequacy. Anyway, we'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and I'll speak to you later. Bye.